Look out, Vegas! I'm taking over!
Oh, the Leprechaun series, one of the few horror movie franchises without a single genuinely good movie in it. And yet somehow it's managed to amass a major cult following of diehard fans, myself included, each one of them offering their own individual charms. And like Chucky and Freddy Krueger before him, the Leprechaun is the star of the show, and legendary actor and star of the first 6 films, Warwick Davis, undoubtedly carries the franchise. But there is one sequel in particular that has, for me, always marked a high point in the series. Perhaps because it manages to strike just the right balance of comedic self-awareness while also delivering the unsavory tropes audiences had come to expect. That film, of course, is Leprechaun 3, aka the one in Vegas. And what better place to talk about this gem of 90s straight-to-video horror than in my channel's newest series? Really, this is just a way for me to talk about some of my favorite less than revered and more obscure movies that wouldn't really work as one of my longer retrospectives. And before anyone asks, while I intend to mostly cover films actually released straight to video, I will from time to time discuss movies that have generally found their broadest audience on the home entertainment market, even if they had theatrical releases in their time. I don't know. I like to keep things open. Anyway, let's talk about Leprechaun 3 in Vegas. Again produced and distributed by the legendary Trimark Pictures, the former leader in cinematic quality, the film would be the third of 4 consecutive Leprechaun films released between 1993 and 1996, and would have the dishonorable distinction of being the first in the series to go straight to video. Early on, however, the sequel was considered to be a 3D theatrical release, and while this gimmick quickly fell to the wayside over budgetary concerns, the original concept behind the third outing would nonetheless take a totally different approach. Originally titled Trial of the Leprechaun, it was conceived as a direct continuation of Leprechaun 2, which at that time went under the name Bride of Leprechaun, the 2 sequels set to be shot back to back, with Trial planned to have half the budget of Part 2 and reduce Warwick Davis's role, the plot involving the Leprechaun inhabiting the bodies of other characters. It was also a courtroom thriller and ended with the Leprechaun going to hell. Sounds familiar. But of course all of that nonsense was abandoned and there was clearly only one way to go from there. Vegas, baby. The Leprechaun series has always been about punishing its characters for their greed and selfishness, and Las Vegas is the perfect setting for this concept to play out. The film finds the Leprechaun being brought to a Las Vegas pawn shop by a mysterious stranger, and is once again unleashed after the misfortunate shop owner, who's obviously never seen a horror movie, removes the amulet from around his neck, and gets a lot more than he bargained for when he steals the creature's pot of gold. The ill-fated pawnshop owner, Gupta, played by Marcello Tubert, makes for a formidable foe for the Leprechaun early on, the character not being killed until nearly 30 minutes into the film, and not from a lack of trying. After the Leprechaun dispenses of the greedy proprietor, Vegas newcomer Scott McCoy inadvertently acquires one of his precious magic shillings, also befriending disenchanted casino worker Tammy, assistant to the low-rent Vegas magician Fazio the Great. While the coin brings Scott short-term fortunes, he quickly learns that his luck is about to run out. And when the shilling falls into the wrong hands, the Leprechaun wreaks his rhyming wrath upon Sin City. The production was denied shooting at every major casino on the Vegas Strip, and therefore the few city shots the film has to offer were accomplished by a blend of stock footage for establishing shots and full-on guerrilla-style filmmaking. Stars Warwick Davis and John Gatins, along with a small second-unit crew, having just a few early morning hours to capture the shots they needed without getting caught, as they lacked the necessary permits. Transversing the city in a white van, the actors and crew reportedly ended up collecting a caravan of fans along the way, some of whom volunteered to appear as background extras. While the Leprechaun films have always leaned silly, this third entry is better classified as a comedy rather than a serious attempt at scaring its audience. And screenwriter David Dubois, under Trimark's direction, would play up the film's goofier elements. I mean, tell me the guy missing body parts ditching the Leprechaun isn't hilarious. Dubois admitted that he hadn't seen either of the first two films at the time he accepted the job, which would mark his first feature writing credit. Made on a relatively minuscule budget of about $1.2 million, B-movie master Brian Trenchard Smith would be brought on to direct. And while he did have some background in horror, the director was mostly known for getting the most out of low-budget productions, and he would return less than a year later to helm Leprechaun 4. The film would also feature several cameos from his previous films, including 3 of the leads from 1994's Night of the Demons 2. The whole film would be shot in just 14 days, the production based almost entirely in Los Angeles at and around the famous and sometimes infamous Ambassador Hotel, which is rumored to be haunted, and cast and crew members even reported witnessing spooky occurrences throughout filming. Leprechaun 3 would be the third feature role of actor and future screenwriter John Gatins, here playing hapless out-of-town college student Scott McCoy. Gatins had gotten his start in cash-in horror movie sequels, and coupled with his boyish good looks, the up-and-coming actor was an obvious choice for the producers. The role of Tammy Larson, Scott's love interest, would mark 25-year-old Lee Armstrong's feature film debut. However, after appearing in just one other film that same year, Armstrong would quit acting altogether. According to director Brian Trenchard Smith, the young actor was very uncomfortable shooting the hotel room striptease, where Tammy is being charmed by the Leprechaun. And her co-stars added that she didn't always seem to understand the kind of movie they were making, especially when it came to the more exploitative elements of the genre.
The audience goes nuts thinking you're in there being burnt alive. I'm gonna call it The Burning Beauty.
John DeMita is a pleasure to watch as the arrogant and talentless Fazio, and he is clearly having a hell of a time chewing up the faux Vegas scenery. Unfortunately, the actor would not escape production totally unscathed. While filming the scene where Fazio steals the magic coin from Loretta, DeMita would all but sever the end of his left middle finger after co-star Carolyn Williams kicked the dressing room door closed while he was reaching back to shut it. This is also why the character is wearing gloves in the film's climax. Fazio's final line
Caesar's Palace
was improvised by DeMita. Warwick Davis is at his peak leprechauniness this third time around, given plenty of room to improvise. In fact, Davis has said himself that Leprechaun 3 is his favorite of the series, citing its more outlandish tone as the film's most redeeming quality. And this doesn't have much to do with anything, but I love that the reason the Leprechaun doesn't excessively swear or churn out lewd quips like Chucky and Freddy is because Warwick Davis claims that the character is a gentleman at heart. Like director Brian Trenchard Smith, special makeup effects supervisor Gabe Bartalos would stretch the production's limited effects budget about as far as it could go, offering some of the most memorable deaths in the franchise. Bartalos also made sure to amp up the film's humor on a visual level, and Loretta's explosive death borders on Looney Tunes. This would be the first time actor and horror icon Carolyn Williams would be required to wear heavy makeup prosthetics for a role, and would be subjected to a full-body cast in order to build Loretta's accentuated features. Unfortunately, this meant there was little money left for Scott's leprechaun metamorphosis, which was ultimately inspired by classic werewolf transformations and added to the actor's face and body in stages.
Worst nightmare.
Look out, Vegas. I'm taking over!
Now, the leprechaun's back in the city that never sleeps. And he will never rest until he reclaims his pot of gold.
Belongs to me, this gold I smell.
The sequel would hit US stores on June 27, 1995 on video cassette, with Trimark distributing 55,000 copies across the country. Somewhat miraculously, the film would become the best-selling direct-to-video feature of that year. Of course, in its time, it was critically harpooned, and today is regarded as for fans only entertainment, and certainly not something a self-respecting film reviewer would ever admit to enjoying. The film would subsequently make its DVD premiere in 2001 and has been re-released multiple times in various collections, and would premiere on Blu-ray from Lionsgate Films in 2014, first in a 7-film franchise collection and later as a standalone Blu-ray. The Blu-ray transfer would receive positive reviews, noting the quality of the color, scan, and sound mixing, and would also offer never-before-seen special features, including retrospective interviews and a feature-length commentary from Brian Trenchard Smith. This release was marketed in conjunction with the VOD premiere of the first series reboot, Leprechaun Origins, a film that I have very different feelings about. Leprechaun 3 is a movie that I saw way too young, something my friends and I would sneak past my parents for sleepovers. The kind of movie that made you feel like you were getting away with something just by watching it. And in a way, that makes it the perfect straight-to-video movie. And even now, the film has this amazing rewatchability that I don't feel the first two, or the last two for that matter, quite capture. Yes, it's stupid, sloppy, and cheap, and no Blu-ray transfer is ever going to fix that, but it's also a wonderful relic from a bygone era, a time of fun and inventive, if not always successful, straight-to-video junk food, each of them crafted with love and passion, and Leprechaun 3 is certainly no exception. So let me know what you think of Leprechaun 3. Is it a pot of gold or a pile of garbage? And tell me what straight-to-video classics you'd like to see me cover next. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and click like below and feel free to share. And don't forget to find me on Patreon at /LeightonEversol, where you'll gain early access to my channel's content and more. And of course, if you want to see more videos just like this one, go ahead and click subscribe.